The reluctant guest, Julian Rivera, adjusted his tie for the third time, wondering why he'd agreed to attend his cousin's art gallery opening. At 35, he'd grown weary of these social events, all surface conversations and strategic networking. His architecture firm was thriving. His designs for sustainable urban spaces had earned him recognition across Seattle, but lately success felt hollow. "Julian, you actually came." His cousin Maya rushed over, resplendent in a flowing dress that matched the vibrant paintings on the walls. "I promised, didn't I?" He forced a smile, accepting her enthusiastic hug. "The gallery looks amazing." "Come, there's someone you should meet," Maya began, but Julian gently extracted himself. "Let me get a drink first," he said, slipping away toward the refreshment table. The gallery hummed with conversations and clinking glasses. Julian grabbed a sparkling water, preferring to keep his head clear. That's when he first heard it, a melancholy cello melody cutting through the chatter, somehow both part of the ambience and separate from it. Following the sound, Julian found himself at the far corner of the gallery, where a woman sat with her cello, eyes closed as her fingers danced across the strings. She wore a simple black dress, her dark hair falling in waves past her shoulders. Unlike everyone else trying to be noticed, she seemed lost in her own world of music. When the piece ended, the small crowd around her applauded politely before drifting away. Julian remained, watching as she took a sip of water. "That was beautiful," he said. "Bach?" The cellist looked up, surprised. "Brahms, actually. Most people don't notice the difference." "I'm not most people," Julian smiled. "Julian Rivera. Nora Chen." Her handshake was firm, her eyes warm but assessing. "Are you a musician?" "An architect." "But my mother played cello with the symphony. I grew up falling asleep to her practicing." Nora nodded, a genuine smile replacing her professional one. "That explains it. Most people at these events treat musicians like furniture." "That's their loss," Julian said, meaning it. A waiter approached with a tray of champagne. Julian declined, but Nora took a glass. "Not drinking tonight?" she asked. "I have a project deadline tomorrow. Need to keep my head clear." "Yet you're at an art opening." "Family obligation." He gestured toward Maya across the room. "My cousin's the gallery owner." "Ah." Nora adjusted a sheet of music. "Well, I should get back to work. My next set starts soon." Julian nodded, oddly reluctant to end their conversation. "Maybe I could hear you play somewhere where you're not just background music?" Nora studied him for a moment. "I perform with a chamber group at Greenwood Community Center on Sundays. 3:00. She picked up her bow. "If architecture deadlines permit." "I'll make time," Julian said, surprised by how much he meant it. As she began to play again, Julian found himself lingering longer than planned. The evening that had promised to be tedious suddenly held something unexpected, a melody he wanted to follow, a story just beginning. For the first time in months, Julian felt genuinely curious about something beyond his work. As Nora's music filled the gallery, he realized he'd found a reason to stay at a party he'd only planned to briefly attend. Improvisation. 3 weeks had passed since their argument at the community center. Julian stood outside Nora's apartment building, clutching a folder of revised blueprints and feeling oddly nervous. The rain fell in a gentle mist around him, typical Seattle weather that matched his uncertain mood. He'd spent these weeks completely redesigning the development project, sacrificing sleep and challenging his firm's partners. Now he needed to know if it would be enough. When Nora opened the door, her expression remained guarded. "Julian, I know I should have called first," he said, "but I wanted to show you something in person." After a moment's hesitation, she stepped aside to let him in. Her apartment was modest but warm, books stacked on coffee tables, a worn sofa covered with colorful throws, and in the corner, her cello resting in its stand. "I've missed hearing you play," Julian said softly. Nora crossed her arms. "Why are you here?" He placed the folder on her kitchen table and opened it. "I redesigned the entire project. The community center stays, not just stays, but becomes the centerpiece of the development. We're creating an arts corridor that preserves existing structures while adding affordable housing and workspace for artists. Nora approached cautiously, studying the renderings. Her fingers traced the outlines of the familiar community center building, now surrounded by thoughtfully integrated new structures. Your firm approved this. It must cut into the profit margin. I convinced them it adds value differently. Cultural capital matters too. Julian hesitated. I also bought the center building myself, separately from the development. I'm donating it to a community trust so it can never be torn down. Nora looked up sharply. That must have cost you. Money isn't everything, Julian interrupted. These past weeks without you made that very clear. She turned away, moving toward the window. It's not just about the building, Julian. You didn't tell me who you were. You let me fall for you while keeping secrets. I wasn't keeping secrets, he said, stepping closer. I was just being seen for myself, maybe for the first time. Not as the architect, the businessman, the name on the building, just as someone who loves the way you get lost in music. Outside, the rain intensified, drumming against the window pane. I don't know if I can trust this, Nora whispered. Trust us. Julian didn't reach for her, giving her the space she needed. I understand, but I'm not asking for an answer today. I just wanted you to know what I'm doing, whether you decide to be part of my life or not. Nora turned to face him, her expression softening slightly. Play something with me. What? You said your mother taught you cello. Play with me, just a simple duet. I want to see if we can still find harmony. Julian hadn't touched a cello in years, but he nodded. Nora brought out her teacher's instrument from its case in the corner. They sat facing each other, and she showed him a simple folk melody, patient as he fumbled through the notes. Slowly, they found a rhythm together, his hesitant notes supporting her confident melody. It wasn't perfect, but there was something truthful in their imperfect duet, a willingness to be vulnerable, to create something new together. When they finished, Nora's eyes held a new warmth. Not bad for an architect. I had a good teacher, Julian replied, his heart lighter than it had been in weeks. The blueprint for their future might still need revisions, but for the first time, they both could see the possibility taking shape. Harmony Spring arrived in Seattle with bursts of cherry blossoms and unexpected sunshine. The groundbreaking ceremony for the Arts Corridor was scheduled for today, and the community center buzzed with excitement. Nora adjusted her cello in the corner of the stage where her quartet would perform after the speeches. Through the window, she could see Julian talking with community members, his gestures animated as he explained some detail of the design. The past 3 months had been a careful dance of rebuilding trust. They'd taken things slowly, coffee dates, walks along the waterfront, nights when Julian would sit quietly reading while Nora practiced. They were learning the rhythm of each other's lives, discovering how to blend their different worlds. Nervous, Maya appeared beside Nora, camera in hand to document the event for her gallery's social media. A little, Nora admitted. It's not often I perform at an event that's partly because of me, Maya smiled. Julian's been different since he met you. More present, more passionate about what matters. He's changed me too, Nora said quietly. Helped me think bigger about what music can do in a community. The ceremony began with speeches from local officials, followed by Julian stepping up to the microphone. He looked confident in his element, yet Nora could detect the slight nervousness in his stance that only she would notice. Architecture isn't just about buildings, Julian began. It's about creating spaces where life happens, where communities thrive. This project began as something very different from what you see in these plans today. His eyes found Nora's across the room. Sometimes we need someone to challenge our vision, to show us what we're missing. After the applause, it was time for the quartet to play. They performed a piece Nora had composed specifically for the occasion, inspired by the journey that had brought them all here. As her bow moved across the strings, she saw Julian watching her, his expression one of pure admiration. Later, as the crowd mingled with refreshments, Julian found her packing away her cello. That was beautiful, he said. Like you somehow turned our story into music. That was the idea. Nora smiled. Though I left out the part where I yelled at you in front of the entire community board, Julian laughed, taking her hand. That was my favorite part. No one had challenged me like that in years. They walked outside to where the old community center stood beside the marked outlines of the new structures that would soon surround it. The setting sun cast long shadows across the ground. "I have something for you," Julian said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small box. Nora's breath caught as she opened it. Inside wasn't a ring, as she'd momentarily feared. They weren't ready for that yet, but a delicate silver key. "What's this for?" "The top floor of my building. I'm converting it into a music studio. Perfect acoustics, soundproofed with a view of the mountains." Julian looked suddenly uncertain. "If you want it," Nora closed her hand around the key, "on one condition. Anything. You have to promise to sit and listen sometimes. No work, no phone. Just you and the music." Julian's smile was answer enough as he pulled her close. Around them, the community they'd both fought for in different ways continued to celebrate, unaware of the private moment unfolding. "I think we've composed something beautiful together," he whispered against her hair. Nora nodded, leaning into his embrace. Their melody was just beginning, but already she could hear the promising themes of their future taking shape. Two distinct voices, finding harmony without either having to sacrifice their unique sound. In the fading light, architect and musician stood together on the ground that would soon transform according to their shared vision. Proof that sometimes the most unexpected encounters lead to the most perfect creations.